Hey, what's up, fellow Yu-Gi-Oh fans? This is going, if I don't make it over 40 minutes, I'll be posting this on Facebook and YouTube. And as I demonstrated in my last video, Yu-Gi-Oh Basics. I posted it on YouTube on my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to go into more detail how you can build a deck easier. It does not have to be the best deck, but you should build a deck of your type of dueling style. There are several ways to do this. One, you can have one of the huge binders and look at each individual card, or like me, because I don't have the money to buy that type of stuff yet, and I only have half my cards because the rest is still in South Bend from my last visit when I visited my family and friends. What I'm about to do is show you how I organize my cards before I start looking through them to build a deck based on card types, strategies, so on and so forth. You'll see that I have a different assortment of monsters. There are exactly 6 different monster types. The monsters go from normal monster, effect monster, ritual monsters, fusion monsters, synchro monsters, and exceed monsters, which are the current. However, I do not have any of the newest ones like the pendulum monsters. I do not know how they work, so I cannot really talk about those. I'm working on trying to figure out the pendulum rule styles, gameplay, so on, but that won't happen until I am able to get back to South Bend with my friends who know probably more about it than I do. Also, there's a spell card that's extremely old. I've heard rumors that it will be coming back, relabeled, and retexted to have different type of an ability. This card is extremely old. It is called Dark Core. For those of you who know that what this card is, it is a card. It was a very vicious spell card when it first came out. You discard one card and you can remove a monster from the game. There's rumors that it's going to come back and be more aggressive, but there's also rumors that Dark Hole is going to get an upgrade. To where when it destroys all monsters in its fields, it does not only destroy them, but it removes them from the game. I have not really dealt in to search for this accusation of a rumor, so I cannot fully go and say that this will happen. Now to show you one way to sort your cards to build a deck. This is Yu-Gi-Oh! Basics. If you think you're above and beyond my teachings, then you can stop watching. This is for those who wants to learn a proper way to learn the basics. You must learn the basics to get the entire game. Because basics, like in any game, from Beyblades to Dragon Ball Z or anything, they've always done basic. Learning how to draw your card, that's basic. If making a deck is basic, you should not want to always be a person who, oh, I gotta get that because everyone else has it. If you do that, you're not building your play style, you're building theirs. You should build at a card you like, not what everybody else has. People call me old style duelist, basically. Because I have a Crystal Beast deck, I have a Blue Eyes deck that's taken me years to build, and with some of the newest cards I brought out, I've been able to build it. It is quite an aggressive card because all my dragons keep resurrecting itself in certain ways. Now, let's get down to business. This is one way you can sort your decks or your cards to help you find what you're looking for faster and easier. As you can see, I've separated my monster cards. Normal monsters, effects, rituals, fusions, exceeds, and synchros and exceeds. Then I have my spells and my trap cards. This is one way you can separate your cards to help you find what you're looking for to build a deck. Now remember, you do not need all the best cards to build a proper deck. Decks come in many forms, many styles. If you're a noob, beginner, as this YouTube video will be for, I'm going to show you with what I have here. As you can see, I've got some new cards, but I've got a lot of old cards. I can show you how to build a proper deck that can handle its own against any style deck. Let's start with normal monsters if you want to start with some basic monsters. Here we are, Luster Dragon. As I showed in my last video, he's a good card to have in any deck, unless your deck runs a specific archetype. Archetype are a monster that has its own branded name, like the Underworld monsters, Crystal Beasts, And there's a lot of other ones out there too. A sub-archetype are like dragon cards. They don't go by an archetype name, they go by their type, which is dragon. Let's build a powerhouse deck for a noob who doesn't understand basics. You saw Luster Dragon has 1900 packs. So we're going to add Gemini Elves, a really old card. And we're going to add powerhouse cards to this deck, but we're also going to be nice and add some defense. I'm going to add a second Luster Dragon. Now I will be setting cards out of the deck and putting them back into the extra piles when I go through the effect monsters to prove a point. Decks can come in any shape, size, form, and ability if you know how to build it. Now 2 cards it would be wise for a beginner to add instead of always going for like Blue Eyes, Dark Magician, Red Eyes. They should always start out slow to learn the basics first. Like when you build your deck, at least have level 5 or 6 monsters you can put in the deck. In this case, Summon Skull and Cyber Tech Alligator. Both have 2,500 attack points, but it only takes 1 monster to summon them for your Tribute Summon. Remember, Tribute Summon is considered a normal summon. Tribute Summon requires you to give up a monster you currently control in your field for a new, stronger monster. Some other monsters you want to add to your deck are defensive. This is going to be a powerhouse deck, but it will have defense. We're going to add another Gemini Elf and a Gen Warped Werewolf. Alright. Then we're going to add Soul Tiger, a card that a lot of people don't use. I love this card because 1, it's a tiger, and I'm an animal lover. And 2, he has 2,100 defense points. Using the proper spell cards, trap cards, or monster effects, you can make this card quite aggressive and quite volatile against your opponent. We're going to add Renji, the Gatekeeper of Dark World, because of his defense powers, 2,100. Next, when you want to build a deck, you want to have level 5 or 6, not too many, at least 2 or 3 for those quick summoning powerhouses. But once in a while, you should at least 1 monster that requires 2 summons. In this case, sacrifice 2 weaker monsters to summon a more powerful monster. Why? Because it'll give you a chance to learn the basics. Learn how you want to develop your own dueling style. You do not and should not have to build a deck based off someone else's dueling style, because that is not how you play. My friend Dwight, aka Casanova or MVP of the Kings, I've seen how he builds deck. I know he builds his decks off his first start. I think is that he builds his decks off how it lists online, but I've seen him modify decks to fit his dueling style. And he has a Battle and Boxer deck as well as a Fist of the Fire Kings deck. And he obliterates me every time. It impresses me. Dwight bends cards to fit his dueling style. He does not follow a list to a T, because doing so, it's like fitting into a Gundam or a Zoid. You have to make sure you are compatible with it. If you're doing it because someone else did it for you, I don't know, it just feels all sluggish, like it's not for you. That was an example. I like Zoids and Gundams, okay? Zoids personally more than Gundam, but I have some of my favorite Gundams. But also when you build a deck, you don't want to summon a monster that takes 2 summons that has the exact same attack power as ones that only takes 1 summon. Like Summon Skull and Alligator, Cyber Tech Alligator have 2,500 attack, but they only require 1 sacrifice. You want to summon a monster that has more attack power than that requires 2. That way you get the full benefit of building your deck, the full power of it. In this case, we're going to add a Blue Eyes White Dragon. I have a lot of them because I love Blue Eyes White Dragon. This one I've given the nickname, as I did all my cards. They all have nicknames based on their picture. This one, because it has the tomb of the ancient tablet, I call this one Blue Eyes White Dragon Kisara, because in Egypt, Kisara held the power of the Blue Eyes White Dragon. The tablet behind her is what she showed Kaiba when his Blue Eyes is his ultimate card, his favorite card, and personally my card. We will add this to the deck as the one monster that has more attack than any other monster in your entire deck. Now, When you build a deck, you should not always think you can overwhelm your opponent and beat them because you think you have the best deck. Remember, you have to build off your own style, your own play style, and this is trial and error. You have to lose duels, not on purpose, but you have to give it all and see where your deck has a flaw. You can improve and defensive these flaws, but you cannot make a perfect deck. No deck is perfect. I am telling you this because people need to know. Now, out of all the normal monsters I showed, I only picked this small amount. We have exactly 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 monsters. That's half of the monsters you should require for a 40 card deck. Now, as you can see, we have this giant pile here and here of effect monsters I will be going through to find cards to benefit this deck. Now, benefit can be anything from a small effect that most people would not care for or would not want to use, but you can use it to its full advantage if you read your cards. Reading your cards means you understand how the card is played and you can use it to benefit your deck. You do not, like I said before, you do not have to do what other people tell you when building your own deck to learn how you duel in a game. Your own duel style means you build things your way. It's your signature, your way to play the game. Some benefits to using your own play style is trial and error, yes, but it does not mean or guarantee you a win, but it guarantees you knowledge. Knowledge is a key to building your deck better and better without diluting your playstyle to someone else's playstyle. If you are bent on letting someone build your decks for you, that means you're using their game style and not yours. I'm going through these cards, but none of these cards seem to fit this type of deck that I want to build as an aggressive defensive deck. So we're going to improvise with some of the effect monsters I have. Like Card Ejector. Okay, yes, it's weak. Yes, it's not very volatile. However, its ability can come in handy if you play it at the right time. You don't have to play it and say, oh, here, I have this monster. I'm going to remove this card from the game. You should wait until you know what their favorite card is they're going to play. It's going to be a card that they have multiple copies of or not. If they don't have multiple copies of this card, that means they require this one card to keep their deck rolling in a chain effect, allowing them to gain abilities. Card Ejector, for those of you who do not know what it looks like or what its ability is, this is Card Ejector, a little mage girl. She's a level 3 with 400 attack and 400 defense. She's an earth spellcaster with an effect. Once per turn, you can target one card in your opponent's graveyard and banish that card. This can be any card. Magic, spell, or magic and spell are the same card. They just have different words. Why? I have no clue. Spells, traps, and monsters. This card can affect any of them if you play it at the right time. You must elaborate this and think, would that card work well in my deck if I want to limit my opponent's uses to their graveyard? This deck that I'm building, yes, it is a style of deck that helps people learn how to play the game. And yes, this video is probably going to be my second longest vid made. But still, it is vital that you learn to play the game your way. You cannot and should not allow someone to hold your hand. They can hold your hand to help you learn how to build your deck and stuff, but you should not let them tell you, oh, you should put that in your deck. You should go with your own design. You should fill your cards. Understand how your cards work and build a deck out of your choices. Like I do it all the time, and I've come up with some very vicious decks. My friends can vouch for this. And when I get back to South Bend, which will be in about mid-September, I will host another video after several others I'm probably going to be posting, and I will show you my best friends. Dragon Kid Jones, which YouTubers should know. He's like a brother to me. You got MVP of Kings, or Casanova, which is my friend Dwight. And then you've got Arthur and my other friend Thomas. These are for basically they're brothers to me. I've known them for a long time. Now getting back to building a deck off your own style. I'm building this off my style of gameplay. You want cards, if you're going to use normal monsters in your deck with effect monsters, you're going to want effect cards that will benefit your deck, not just the entire duel. You need cards that have defensive effects or cards that can help neutralize your opponent's capabilities. You want cards that would keep your opponent on edge so they do not hold back and think you're weak. A lot of players are going to think, oh, you're a noob, you're weak. But you know what you should always remember? They were a noob at one time too. Here's a good card. Mask of Darkness. Yes, this card is good in almost any deck because of its ability. While it is, you can set it face down, and then when it's flipped face up, if you attack it, it gains its ability, unless the monster attacking negates abilities. And if you flip face up, it gains its ability. This allows you to take one trap card from your graveyard and add it back into your hand so you can use it again. This is a good card to have in a beginner deck because of that ability. Because you're going to require the defensive power of your monsters, your spells, and your traps to make this deck work properly. If you do not do this, this could have a lethal effect on the decks you face. Now, as I said, you cannot guarantee a win against every deck you face. There will be people out there who will try to cheat you out of how your cards work. So you must learn your cards your way. You must learn what they can and cannot do. That way, if someone tries to cheat you and they realize that they can't cheat you out of your cards, they will try to cheat you with theirs. There are quite a few people who will try to cheat you by drawing an extra card or drawing the card underneath the top card or looking through their deck or shuffling or making a mistake to knock it over so they can rearrange their cards. This is one way of cheating. It's called deck stacking. There are people who are good enough to stack their deck after they're shuffled and cut. However, there's an invisible rule in Yu-Gi-Oh! That a lot of people seem to pay attention to. If someone cuts your deck, whether they cut it or shuffle it, which is legal, you are allowed to do so, you have every right to do that to them. If they do not allow you, do not duel them or turn them into a tournament referee if you are in a tournament. If not, and they do not allow you to shuffle or cut their deck, but they insist on cutting yours or shuffling yours, then that is the first hint they are cheating. A fair game should allow both players to cut each other's deck fairly. That does not mean you can look at your opponent's deck. You can cut it without looking. Other cards you want to put in a deck are effects to defend yourself against other effects or gain more abilities when monsters on your field are triggered in some way, like Exploder Dragon. Exploder Dragon is a very useful card because it has two types of abilities. One, if he attacks any monster on the field, as long as that monster does not negate abilities, when he attacks, he's destroyed. Yes, however, there's a benefit from this. You're giving up your monster, that is true. However, you're also gaining an advantage at your opponent because his ability will kick in. If you attack with him, he dies, but he drops a bomb at your opponent and kills the monster that killed him. And doing so means you will not also take any battle damage from this. However, if you have him face up on the field and your opponent attacks him, you will take the difference between their attack powers. But if he's destroyed, his ability will go off to destroy that monster. He is vital if you want to keep level control. Here is another monster, Dragon Ice. Dragon Ice is a very useful card because its ability can work from hand and or the graveyard. If your opponent special summons a monster, you can discard one card and special summon this card from your hand or your graveyard. In this case, from what I've been told and what I found out, he's in my hand. He's the only card in my hand. Your opponent special summons, I can discard him to the graveyard and he'll automatically special summon himself because you paid his cost to be summoned. Now, this also works anytime he's in the graveyard. You can give up one monster to special summon him because that is his ability. He is a 2,200 defense point monster. Doing this means he can be vital in your deck, but you also got to be careful what vitals you put in your deck because you could overwhelm your deck with too much power. A balanced deck requires weak monsters as well as strong monsters. If you do not do this properly, you could find a lot of flaws in your deck. This deck will, here's a good card to begin with a deck or an advanced version of a deck. It's called Dodger Dragon. His ability, for those who love counter trap cards or like to negating summons, this card counteracts that. No matter what the card says, if you summon him, you cannot negate his summoning. Cards like Bottomless Trap Hole and Trap Hole can still work. However, if he hits the field and you do not destroy him, even if you do play Bottomless Trap Hole or Trap Hole, his effect still goes off because he was summoned to the field. This makes it to where your opponent, for the rest of this turn, he cannot play counter trap cards. The counter trap cards are cards that have a little symbol by where it says trap card. It'll have a little arrow like this. Goes down and over, showing an arrow. That is called a counter trap card. They are the Speed Spell 3 versions. Only a Speed Spell 3 can beat a Speed Spell 3. This card is good for a deck as well. Other cards that you want to put in a deck, not only for balance, power, and defense, you want to make sure it benefits your deck. Not just give it all these powerful cards because it could overwhelm you. You want to have a balanced deck of 20 monsters, 10 spells, 10 traps. But you got to make sure your monsters can collaborate properly with the spells and trap cards that you have. As you can see, I do not have a lot to work with. However, I've been able to make decks out of any type. You do not need to follow an archetype basis deck. As you see, I've been putting a lot of dragons in this deck because dragons, well, back in the day, they didn't have a lot of type. They didn't have a lot of power to them. Now they've got overwhelming power. They're considered one of the top archetype sub-archetypes out there. Let's see. Yeah, I'm a little tired. I've been trying to do this before I go to sleep because I'll forget to do this because of how my brain is. Let's see. We still need a little more defensive capabilities, but you also need effects that could help counteract spells and trap cards. Cards like this are like Genzo. But if you want to keep control of your opponent's monsters and more than their spells and trap cards, here's another good card, but it will require them to destroy this card by battle. Nadoria. When this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, target one monster on the field and destroy it. Now, that brings up a very valid intel you all need to know. When a card says when this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, it can trigger its ability. However, if it's destroyed by battle and removed from the game, it cannot trigger its ability because it was never sent to the graveyard. This is a good fact that you need to know. If cards have specifics like Nadoria does, you must learn that ability. There are so many different ways to build a deck, but there's also ways to keep your monsters defensive. Like, here we go, Dandelion. Put Dandelion in this deck, and when it's basically no matter what, from your hand, your deck, or your field, and it goes to the grave, you automatically get 2 tokens to your field as monsters to help defend you. This is good, but it's also bad at the same way because your opponent can destroy them still if it is not your turn. Here's another good card if you want to keep trying to chip away at your opponent's deck. Needleworm. A very vicious card because when it's flipped face up, whether you attack it or not, anytime it turns from face down to face up, it gains the ability to remove 5 cards from the opponent's deck to the graveyard. Doing this can limit what the cards they were hoping to get and, well, ruin that ability. Another weak monster is the famous Grand Mole, Neospatian Grand Mole. Its ability, when it attacks, before the damage calculation, this is before they collide with each other and inflict damage to each other to see who would win. His ability can go off to bounce himself and the monster he battles back to the owner's hands. Doing this can save your monster, but there are monsters that have similar effects to him. It's determined whose would go off first. Since he would trigger when he attacks, his would go off first. So if another monster effect activates after his, the monster that activated last gets to trigger his ability first. This is called a chain effect. It's, in one term, it's called the backward effect. Backward effects means the first card to activate is the last card to trigger off. It's quite annoying and confusing, I understand, but once you get the hang of it, it can be a vital weapon to destroy your opponent. Now, I'm pretty sure I've got close to the 20 cards I need for my monster deck. But just in case, we're going to add another level 4 monster known as Thunder King Ryo. Those of you know what Thunder King Ryo does, you know that can be a very useful card against your opponent, especially for those who love to special summon. Let's see here. Another good card for a beginning deck is DD Warrior Lady, also known as Different Dimension Warrior Lady. Why? Is because it does not matter power. Your monster's attack and defense should not matter in the least unless it is a normal monster. Your effect monsters should rely on their capabilities as effects. DD Warrior Lady can be very vital in a deck or vital with a battle because of its ability. If this card is destroyed by battle and would be sent to the graveyard, you can trigger its ability to banish this card from the game. Doing so means it takes the monster that killed it with it. This is another way to limit your opponent's deck of monsters. Now remember, this is just the monsters. I haven't gotten to the spells and traps yet. Here, there are 3 types of ninjas that are extremely old. They're actually considered some of my favorites. They are Crimson Ninja, Armored Ninja, and White Ninja. Why do I like these 3 other than the fact that they're ninjas and I studied martial arts and everything? Is because of their abilities. Crimson Ninja, flip effect. When this card is attacked and flip face up, it gains its ability. Crimson Ninja has the ability to destroy 1 face down trap card on the field. I believe it's on either player's turn. Armored Ninja does the same thing, however, it targets a spell card on the field, not a trap. White Ninja, here's Armored and White Ninja, by the way. White Ninja, which is the white one, obviously, has the ability to destroy a defense position monster. These are all in my deck. It should be about 20 now. Let's find out. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. I have 22 monsters. Now, some people, when they build a deck, it's like, that's too much. Now I got to start all over. No, you don't. You can just go through your deck and see what would be vital for you to keep in your deck and what would not be. In this case, you have a lot of high-powered 1900 attack point monsters. We can decrease that number by 2. So, let's say I'm going to take out Gemini Elf and Luster Dragon. This gives me exactly 20 monsters. Now, there's another monster in this pile that I've already gone through called White Knight Dragon. His attack and defense are the same as Blue Eyes White Dragon. However, he has 2 very unique abilities. The first, let's say I summon him and you play a card that targets him, he instantly, it's a passive ability, means it's a automatic activation. It does not trigger an activation, it's just there. It's like Genzo's ability, it does not activate. If you target him with the effect of a card that would specifically target him, he automatically negates and destroys that card. His other ability is that I can discard a card from my hand. Doing this, if you attack one of his monsters, I discard a card, and it redirects the attack to him. This makes him a very vicious card. I have few copies of this card because he's actually my second favorite type of dragon. But we will look for him another time when we go to update this deck. Now let's work on the spell cards. These cards are very vital. Spells and traps for a deck of balanced of 40 is vital to make key stand against your opponent, no matter his way of playing the game. We'll start from the top. We won't really look for anything, but you want to find cards that pique your interest that would benefit. Excuse me. Cards that would benefit your deck. In this case, we are going to go with, since we have 3 tribute summon based monsters in this deck, we should try using Soul Exchange. It is a possibility. It does not mean you need this card, but it is a good way in case you can't use it your style because your opponent keeps taking your monsters from you. Another good card to have is Swords of Revealing Light. This will grant you 3 turns to bring up your defenses and cause some havoc. And like last time, you want Creature Swap to give him a weak monster, and you take his strong monster because some people special summon a lot, which allows them to summon again. We should also go with 2 Mystical Space Typhoons, not 3, because that takes up more room you could have to deal with monsters and effects. 3 can be useful, but if you want to balance between destroying your opponent's monsters, negating effects, and dealing with their spell and traps, you should use at least 2, giving you more room to use cards that do these type of abilities. Here we go. Nobleman of Crossout. If your opponent loves to play face-down cards, this is the card to use. Nobleman of Crossout, you play this, it targets a face-down monster on either player's field and banish it from the game. Which means if you do this, monsters that flip effect this way do not gain their ability, because they were never flipped face up. Also, because if it was a flip effect monster, it allows you to look through your opponent's deck to see if they have any other copies of that card, and will banish them as well. Okay, that's done. Going through the second batch in my hand. What's this? Molten Destruction. Here's a card to help defend you more. A lot of you should know this card very well. Ego Boost. It's a quick play spell card which allows you to play it when your monster attacks or is attacked, allowing you to give it 1,000 more power. This will help make your monster stay on the field, but also limit your opponents. Excuse me. Let's see. What's another vital card for a deck like this? I go by pictures, so I don't have to read the card to know what cards are, because I know what most of my cards are by looking at their picture. It's just, I guess that's how my mind works with me. And finding cards that are vital to a deck like this is not hard for me to find. As you see, I've already found quite a few. Some of the newer cards, yes, I have to stop and read to see if they're vital for this deck, but these cards I know are not. Ancient Telescope is an interesting card. See the top 5 cards of your opponent's deck, return the cards to the deck in the same order. This gives you advantage to see what he'll draw for the next 5 turns. But that's not vital for this deck because you're not going to focus on that type of ability. You're going to try to focus on maintaining your cards but limiting his. Here's a card. Yes, it may be banned in tournaments, not freestyle. Tournament rules only work in a tournament setting. If someone challenges you to a duel and you do not classify that it is a tournament style duel, then you're free to use any cards you want. But remember the rules of having only 3 copies of the same card. I've been building decks since I was 18 years old. That's 11 years Yu-Gi-Oh's been out. You know that? Why do I say that? Because I am 29 years old. Let's see now. Yu-Gi-Oh is probably older than 11 years, but still. Oh, that was a timber move. Cards spilled. Luckily, because of how they spilled, it's easy to pick them back up. There we go. Stop moving. And since you're not playing by tournament standards, Pot of Greed is a good card to have in a beginner deck to help you learn to play the game before you get to more advanced rule settings. Like tournament rule settings are an advanced way to play. This tests your skill, your balance of your deck, and the way you play the game. Since you do not have to follow tournament rules in any way, shape, or form unless you are in an actual tournament setting. This does not limit you like it does with everybody else. Me, I limit myself this way because it tests my true vitality. There's only one archetype out there I know that's never been limited or restricted, so I can have 3 of every card of that type in my deck. And I'm referring to the Crystal Beasts. Crystal Beasts are a very vicious type of cards if you can build them properly. A lot of people use only 5 Crystal Beast monsters and then use all these other cards. That's not a true Crystal Beast deck. If you want to prove the true power of a Crystal Beast deck, you must use all 7 Crystal Beasts. But you do not have to use all the Rainbow Dragons. Crystal Beasts are quite vicious even without a Rainbow Dragon on your side. But back to the card deck at hand. If you want to test your opponent's capabilities, you want to put a few throwaway monsters or spells in your deck to test what they'll do. One of these cards is very vital to see that they'll waste a card against you. Would be Level Limit Area B. This card makes all monsters of level 4 or higher standard switch to defenseman. The only monsters this type of card will not affect are Exceed monsters and monsters that are immune to spell cards. Here is what Level Limit Area B looks like. Level Limit Area B. Now remember, I'm only searching for 10 spell cards, no more, because that'll leave just enough room for 10 traps. Here's a good card, especially if you have the upper hand and you have, like, say, Blue Eyes on your field. This is a very good card because of what it does. It is called Rainbow Veil. Those of you watch the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX series, you'll know what this card does. While it's equipped to the monster, until the end of the damage step, I believe, or is it the end of the turn? Yep, end of the battle phase, until the very end of the battle phase, this card negates all monster effects that it battles with. In this case, let's say a monster that would destroy card or card on the field, like Grave Screamer, 0 attack, 0 defense. If Blue Eyes has this equipped to it, when it attacks a face-down Grave Screamer will not gain its ability. Because it works when it hits the graveyard. It's still the end of that battle phase that it would trigger. So it'd be battle, damage step, end of the battle phase. At the end of the battle phase, it can't activate its ability because this works until that moment. So this would still trigger to negate it. It's very complicated. I didn't understand it first, but I had a level 3 rank judge explain it to me. He said that is very true. Let's see. 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have 11 spell cards. I need to diss one of them. So when you come across a situation like this, you need to look through your deck to find what is not vital to have. In this case, let's go with Level Limit Area B. It's not truly vital for this deck. And that will be the end of that. This video will not be posted on Facebook because it's only allowed to be up there to 40 minutes, and this is 39:34. So it's going to go over by the time I'm done with my trap cards. This is okay because this is technically for YouTube. I will send the link of my YouTube channel to Facebook to have people see videos if they wish to see them or not. Now, let's move to the trap cards. Remember, you want trap cards that are defensive but offensive as well. And you see, these are the only trap cards I have currently. I have books with trap cards in them, but vital, I can use what I have here to prove my point. This is a random stack. Most of my spells and traps are in South Bend. Let's see. You're going to want Dark Bribe, Magic Cylinder, Mirror Force, Bottomless Trapple, Fiendish Chains. This will keep your opponent on his toes because of this fact. You want cards that would really damage your opponent. Here we go, Regeki Break. Yes, you discard a card, but it lets you destroy a card on the field. We'll throw in another Mirror Force. Then we'll throw in these last 3 cards. This, I'm probably guessing, is over 10 cards. We will find out here in a sec. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I was right. So we need to disc 1 card. In this case, we'll remove Remote Revenge. It is a very good card to have, but it is not a must. The 10 cards in this deck are Dark Bribe, Magic Cylinder, Mirror Force, Bottomless Trapple, Fiendish Chain, Regeki Break, another Mirror Force, a Just Eye Break. For when you have your normal monsters in the field, it comes in quite handy, trust me. Divine Wrath, and Curse Seal of the Forbidden Spell. These cards become vital in a beginner's deck because it is their strongest type of defense. Now, I'm going to end this video here. And my third video will be labeled just like this one and my last one, Yu-Gi-Oh! Basics 3. This one will be labeled Yu-Gi-Oh! Basics 2. This is how to build a deck properly with what you have in front of you. Just remember, decks must be played by your own way of playing the game. You do not have to follow people's rules saying, oh, if you do this, you're playing a weak deck. You should play with what you feel is right, not what anybody else tells you. I've had a lot of kids quit playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Because people were trying to control how they played the game and discouraged them quite a lot. This made me upset. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a fascinating game. It's fun to play. I'm 29 years old and I still love this game. Because it's a hobby. It's something to do. I play video games. I'm on my computer. And I have friends. Yeah, they're younger than me, only by a few years, but they're my bestest friends. Well, probably because I also have a mental disability, but I don't really care about that. Back to the main point, though. Yu-Gi-Oh! Teaches reading, math, sportsmanship, teamwork. These are vital even in school. That's why some schools actually promote Yu-Gi-Oh! Being played, but not during class time hours. They allow it during when you have free time, recess, or like in study hall or something. What study hall? Self-explanatory. Come on now. As I said, I will end this video here. This is Phoenix signing out.